already read it. We will read. Correct. So I'll read it.
We have read it. And the
Okay.
top 10 to 12 lines you have done. But I
Huh.
think for the sake of continuity, read those 10 lines.
Okay. We'll start from the beginning. All turns around the question, what is reality? Because the problem is that at every level, the reality seems to be different. So, all turns around the question, what is reality? Our cognitive consciousness is limited. When he's using the words cognitive consciousness, he is meaning probably the our normal mental capacity, where logic is there and where there is construction of thoughts in the mind. Remember, when you are in the higher level, there is no construction because you are not using the mind at all. You are using totally different instruments of knowledge. You are not using the mind anymore in the second level. At the spiritual planes of consciousness, your mind has become silent and you are using other instruments of knowledge. So our cognitive consciousness is a mental knowledge, is limited, ignorant, finite. Okay, we don't see the reality as it is, we don't understand the reality. Our cognitive consciousness is limited, ignorant, finite. Our conceptions of reality depend on our way of contact with existence in this limited consciousness and may be very different from the way in which an original and ultimate consciousness sees it. When you go to the higher level, original and ultimate consciousness is the supramental. Original, the origin of the universe, that's what it means. Okay, so because the superconscient is beyond the cosmos. So when he says origin, that means there is the origin of something. So that's obviously when he says origin and ultimate consciousness, he is talking of the supermind. Because the transcendent is not really origin in that sense, because origin means it is creating. So original and ultimate consciousness necessarily means supermind. The way supermind sees, we don't see it in the physical world in that way. That's what he's saying. It's very obvious. It is necessary to distinguish between the essential reality, the phenomenal reality, depend upon it, and arising out of it. The essential reality is static. It is perfect. It doesn't need to move, doesn't need to create anything. It has, and when it starts creating, it becomes a phenomenal reality. Phenomenon, again, the word very clearly means that which is a phenomenon. And a phenomenon is that which is created, it lasts for a certain time and then disappears. That's a phenomenon. Okay. So the word is used in different ways also. You can say Sachin's batting was phenomenal. That means fantastic. Not in that sense. It's used in the sense of that which is a phenomenon, transience. Okay. The word is used in that sense. So phenomenal reality. Okay, so it is necessary to distinguish. We have to make a distinction how you see at the highest level and how you see at the lowest level. It is necessary to distinguish between the essential reality, the phenomenal reality, depend upon it, and arising out of it. There you are, dependent. Our phenomenal, the world depends upon the supermind and is coming out of it. Okay, actually, it's coming out of the overmind, but anyway, you can say also that it is coming out from the supermind. The transcendent does not originate the universe. Remember that. The very fact that Satchidananda is a transcendent and that does not create the world. It just sits in itself, it concentrates in itself. So if it wants to project itself, is a supermind that does that. The supermind is a creative power. And the real creative power is the overmind. Okay? So the phenomenon depend upon it and arising out of it. And the restricted and often misleading experience or motion of either that is created, by our sense experience and our reason. So everything, what the world is creating is all originating from that essential reality. The essential reality is producing the phenomenal reality, and you can say the phenomenal reality is in time and space. Okay, in the higher essential reality, there is no time, no space. It is something absolute. Okay. To our sense, the earth is flat. Okay, yeah, we saw that last time. And for most immediate practical purposes, within a limit, we have to follow the sense reality and deal with the flatness as if it were a fact. Okay, but in true phenomenal reality, the flatness of the earth is unreal. Now, in true phenomenal reality, it's almost contradictory. No? So, the phenomenal reality is never true, but when you see it even from that lower level, in a certain sense, in the true reality, the flatness of the earth is unreal. There is no flatness. And science, seeking for the truth of the phenomenal reality in things, has to treat it as approximately round. Okay. So that's what science finally does. Okay. In fact, we see even the roundness when we go up into space. So our notion is verified when we go into space and see that. In a host of details, science contradicts the evidence of the senses as to the real truth of phenomena. Okay, so real truth. Science contradicts the evidence of the senses. Science is going beyond the senses. And that whole movement of going beyond the senses started, as I told you, at the turn of the 20th century, 1910, 1920, when that new science discovered that consciousness is very, very playing a large part in the way we see things. Okay, the what is the name of that theory? My mind is anyway. It will come back very quickly. Okay, so it started from
Theory of relativity.
no, theory of relativity is Einstein. Einstein. It came later. Earlier was a theory of. Anyway, it will come. My mind is 83 years old. Things are not coming very easily to the mind. Okay, so still we have to accept the real truth of phenomena. We have to accept it at this level. But still we have to accept that. Achha, by the way, this word in French, normally we would say cadre, and a cadre is a framework. Okay, so the framework provided by our senses. But if you type the word and listen to your Google, they will say that it has to be pronounced cadre. Okay, we used to pronounce it earlier as a cadre or cadre. Cadre is the French word, but cadre, that means a framework. Okay, but still we have to accept the cadre, if you want, provided by our senses, because the practical relation of things which they impose on us have validity as an effect of reality and cannot be disregarded. When I am seeing something, the senses, we have to accept that. Our reason, relying on the senses and exceeding them, constructs its own canons and notions of the real and the unreal. But these canons, by the way, the word canon means the rules. Okay, the word canon here doesn't mean that command, the one that sends out a missile. No, it's not that. Okay, own canon or notions of the real and unreal. But these canons vary according to the standpoint taken by the reasoning observer. The one who is reasoning depends on how he is looking at it. Is he looking through senses? Is he looking through the mind? It becomes different. The physical scientist, probing into phenomena, erects formulas and standards based on the objective and phenomenal reality and its processes. The phenomenal reality, it is basing itself on the sense data. That's what it means. Its processes. To his view, mind may appear as a subjective result of matter and self and spirit as unreal. Okay, so to his view, the one who is a physical scientist, that's the first one. No? So his view, mind may appear as a subjective result of matter. Okay? Matter is producing life and matter is producing mind. But that mind has become now subjective. Subjective, it's not objective anymore. Matter and self and spirit are unreal. Mind is subjective result of matter, and self and spirit is unreal to the scientist. Okay. At any rate, he has to act as if matter and energy alone existed and mind were only an observer of an independent physical reality which is unaffected by any mental processes. There is a footnote there. We'll see the footnote and that. This position is taken by the theory of relativity, but it must hold as a pragmatic basis for experiment and affirmation of the scientific fact. Okay, so this position, the position of seeing the physical world as unreal. Let's go get back to our mental processes or any or intervention of a cosmic intelligence. Now, so the scientists, the physical scientists, okay, because there are other scientists also, no? There is medical science, there is psychological science, these are also sociology also is a science. So now Srimba is saying that the physical scientist is seeing matter and energy as real, and the rest of it all which we don't see by through the senses is unreal. Now he comes to the psychologist. The psychologist, probing independently into mind consciousness and mind unconsciousness, discovers another domain of reality, subjective in its character, which has its own law and process. Now, let's look only at the West, because these things, what he's saying, does not apply to India, because India, the deepest of knowledge always. So the physical scientist is all, it started in the West. Today we have physical scientists in India also who follow the Western standards, but he is talking of the Western. So the psychologist also is Western. So there was James Jeans, okay, who was an astronomer, but he realized that the quantum theory is the word I was looking for. Quantum theory, that light is coming in little packets. It's not like a wave, it's a quantum. It's coming in small packets. The reality is coming in small packets of light. That's what made the change of science into a philosophy. Okay, suddenly the word has come. So the psychologists in the West, okay, I'll just mention a few of them who got that impression. Walt Whitman, 1850 in America. He was a poet, but he was a very interesting poet. He wrote poetry in prose. And Srimdu says it's very interesting, but he says that it's not really very successful. But he had the cosmic consciousness. Srimdu is seeing from his poems that he is a cosmic consciousness he has got. So the psychologist has to take account of that. Okay. Then there are many in Germany, because Germany is a very subjective race. They are into music, into science, into philosophy, not like the French. The French are more artistic, but the Germans are very deep in their way of looking and thinking. They are very deep in science, they're so successful. Science, music, and even the philosophy. Okay. So psychologists, probing independently into mind consciousness and mind unconsciousness, discovers another domain of realities, subjective in its character, which has its own law and process. We need not forget to mention Sigmund Freud, who is the beginning of psychology in the West, and also his disciple, who later turned against him, Carl Jung. Okay, Carl Jung also was his disciple, but he disagreed with him. Okay, because Freud was saying that everything is coming from the unconscious, and he gave a huge place to sex in his view of things. He says everything is determined much by the sexual desires. But Carl Jung disagreed with him, and at the end of his life, he broke off with him. Although he loved him, he broke off with him. So this is the psychology that Srimad is speaking about. You have to take that into account. To him, who the psychologist, mind may even come to appear as a key to the real. Okay? Mind at the spiritual level of consciousness. Matter only as a field for mind, and spirit apart from mind as something unreal. Even the psychologists will say that. Okay? Because most of them, when they go to the spiritual planes of consciousness, even in the West, They don't see the personal aspect of the divine. They see the impersonal aspect of the divine. So therefore, spirit, God is unreal. But there is a farther probing which brings up the truth of self and spirit and establishes a greater order of the real, in which there is a reversal of our view both of the subjective mind realities and objective physical realities, so that they are seen as things phenomenal, secondary, dependent upon the truth of self and the realities of the spirit. So three levels: the physical scientist, the psychologist, and finally the spiritual man. So these are the three levels that he's speaking about here in this paragraph. So the physical scientist limited only to level 1 in matter and energy. He doesn't see energy, but he can see the results of energy. Level 2, philosophy. The one you go to level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness, which is also, you are much more knowable, and you have got much more knowledge than in level 1, but still it is incomplete. Okay? So that's it. Finally, when you go to the highest levels, you realize that spirit is the origin of everything, and everything depends upon spirit. The phenomenal world depends upon the essential world. That's what Shakespeare is saying. So that they are all seen as things phenomenal, secondary, dependent upon the truth of self and realities of the spirit. So again and again he repeats in many places. Self-existent. It doesn't depend on anything. Satchidananda is self-existent. Satchidananda is itself the creator. It is not the created. Okay? Whereas matter is the created. It is a creator in a secondary sense. Matter is producing life at the lower level. In evolution, that's what we see. Out of matter is coming life, and out of life is coming mind. So it's a creator, but it's a secondary creator. Okay, not the essential. That's what he's saying. In this deeper search into things, mind and matter begin to wear the appearance of a lesser order of the real, and may easily come to appear as unreal. So even when you see the reality comparatively, you feel that the physical world is unreal. Okay? Sremdar also that experience, and he saw the physical world as only shadow forms. Okay? He uses the word silhouette. He says they were all silhouette forms. Very, like a shadow, na? When you see a shadow, you don't see the nose and the ears, but you see only the outline. That's a silhouette. So the outline, the form, is unreal. It is something which is not, it doesn't have substance. It doesn't have, so that's what the physical world is only mere forms and not the reality. That's what he said. So, before we go to the next one, before we go to the next chapter, paragraph, yeah, let me read the summary so that we are going to summarize the whole question. He's saying in this paragraph that we read just now, the whole question of reality depends on what we mean and understand by it. What do you mean by reality? Man's understanding of things depends upon his senses, his mind, and the cognitive faculty, which we call reason. But there can also be intuition, imagination. All this is an instrumentation provided by nature to man. The instrumentation is limited, imperfect, and ignorant. Note that even in nature, many animals have superior sight and hearing than man. Eagles are far-sighted, dogs' hearing is much better and sharper than man's. Chameleons have got 360 degrees sight. Okay? Cats can see in the dark. Bats can hear that which man cannot hear. I am mentioning all this to show how imperfect are our senses. Okay? That's it. To our senses, the earth is flat, and our acts adjust to this way of seeing. The scientist knows the earth to be round. Science often contradicts the data of our senses. The physical scientist takes matter and its phenomenon to be real, and mind and spirit are not real. The psychologist may consider another subtler realm to be real, and the material world to be only an unreal field for mind's play. The yogin finally sees spirit to be the only reality and all else as only its relative manifestation. He reverses the whole scale of reality and even considers the material world to be unreal or at least a secondary or lesser reality. I'm going to stress the word reversal, okay? Because Mother uses that word and Shyam also uses that word, so we might as well take a little bit of time to look into it, okay? Renversement de conscience, she says, because when you are in the physical world, all your senses are going outwards. When you go into the spiritual world, your attention goes inwards. You are looking into yourself. So it's a total reversal of consciousness. That which is outside now, inside becomes more real. Okay? So that word reversal is very interesting. The outward look becomes inward look in yoga. Okay? So that's what he's saying. There's a total U-turn that happens. So now we can read the next para. So only three of you are there. Shilpa is not there. Yesterday she said she's going out, so she is not joining. Three of you are there. We are recording, of course. Sunki, will you read?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Read. Yes. Go ahead.
This is at least a possibility that
No,
we have
no,
in
no, no,
the
no, no,
world.
no, 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 no. But
Sorry. Sorry. But it is the reason.
Yeah.
Okay. But it is the reason accustomed to deal with the finite that makes these exclusions. It cuts the whole into segments and can select one segment of the whole as if it were the entire reality. This is necessity for its action, since its business is to deal with the finite as finite, and we have to accept for practical purposes and for the reasons dealing with the finite, the cadre it gives us, because it is valid as an effect of reality, and so cannot be disregarded. When you come to the experience of the spiritual, which is itself the whole and contains the whole in itself, our mind carries there too its segmenting reason and the definition necessary to a finite cognition. It cuts a line of section between the infinite and the finite, the spirit and its phenomena or manifestations, and dubs those as real and these as unreal. But an original and ultimate consciousness embracing all the terms of existence in a single integral view would see the whole in its spiritual essential reality and the phenomenon as a phenomenon or manifestation of that reality. If this greater spiritual consciousness saw in things only unreality and an entire disconnection with the truth of the spirit, it could not have, if it were itself a truth consciousness, any reason for maintaining them in continuous or recurrent existence through all time. If it is so maintains them, it is because they are based on the realities of the spirit. But necessarily, when thus integrally seen, the phenomenal reality would take on another appearance than when it is viewed by the reason and sense of the finite being. It would have another and deeper reality, another and greater significance, another and more subtle and complex process of its movements of existence. The canons of reality and all the forms of thought created by the finite reason and sense would appear to the greater consciousness as a partial construction with an element of truth in them and an element of error. These constructions might therefore be described as at once real and unreal, but the phenomenal world itself would not become either unreal or unreal real by that fact. It would put on another reality of a spiritual character. The finite would reveal itself as a power, a movement, a process of the infinite.
Okay, so interesting para. So we'll quickly have a summarized thing and then we'll go into each sentence. The summarizing is very, sometimes very interesting because you come to know exactly in very short what he's saying. Sometimes you can get lost in details. Okay? It's necessary to see details also, but sometimes you can get lost. So now he's saying in this para, it is the mind of man by its analytical faculty that cuts, divides, segments, makes exclusions. We lay stress on some things and we reject other things. This is necessary and essential for practical life in the world since it is in the field of the finite and multiplicity. And this is valid too in the physical world. Okay. But in the spiritual spheres, it is not valid because the consciousness now is in the infinite and the indivisible whole. But the inveterate habit, the perpetual hard bound habit of mind to divide and segment pursues us there too and cuts the indivisible into various parts. Separation is forced on the infinite and the finite, between essential reality and phenomenal transience. But the latter is real too, though temporary phenomena. The world is not unreal, although you see it as unreal from a certain angle. If the Brahman saw the world as unreal, actually he does not. Okay? But if he saw it as unreal, what would happen? He's saying, as unreal relative, why would he sustain and maintain it through eternity? There is a question that Swami is asking. If really the world were unreal, but it is lasting, so why will the divine continue to be, make the world last? Something which is, the Brahman is perfection. So why would he want the world which is false, which is supposed to be false, why would it continue? It would disappear. That's what Swami is giving a reason for that. Why would he sustain and maintain it through eternity? He does so because the world is a real expression of the Supreme. Not the word expression. It's not the ultimate reality, but it's an expression of the reality. Okay? Even as if derivative, secondary, transient. There is a difference between the original thought and its expression. So, the integral view of the manifestation is not the same as the mental view. To the supreme integral sight, the universe reveals its deeper underlying secret truth. The gold, common to all the separate ornaments, is seen as a permanent reality. The forms, thoughts not unreal, are perishable, therefore derivative secondary. So what he's saying is, when you are in the physical world, you see the forms of the ornaments made of gold, but you see them as ornaments. Oh, this is a ring, this is a necklace, this is a nose ring, this is an anklet. But when you go to the second level of consciousness, you see that array, these forms are perishable. But the truth is the reality. Reality is there in all of these. Okay, that's what you see. That's what he's saying. Okay, that's what he said in the para. Now we can go to the each sentence. We have got 10 minutes, about 10 minutes, 9 minutes actually. So we'll see. So, but we have to read from there, na? But it is a reason accustomed to deal with the finite that makes these exclusions. The cutting up is the function of the mind, and when you are in the mind, you are cutting it up. It is reason. Reason is the mind, which makes these exclusions. This is unreal, this is real, this is partial, this is that. Okay, it cuts up. It cuts the whole. What is the it? The mind, the reason. It cuts the whole into segments and can select one segment of the whole as if it were the entire reality. That's what we are seeing. This is necessary for its action, since its business is to deal with the finite as finite. If we don't see it as finite and see it as infinite, we will have great amount of confusion in the mind. Okay? And actually that's what happens very often. A spiritual person whose consciousness rises to the higher level of consciousness, starts seeing the infinite, and he is confused between the finite and the infinite. He loses his mind. That also can happen. So, reason, logic, very, very necessary in the physical world to stay, to be stable, okay, and understand things at that level. This is necessary for its action, since its business is to deal with the finite as finite. I have to make a distinction between a mango and an apple. But if I'm at the higher level and both are fruits and there's no difference between them, then how will I deal with the physical world? I will not be able to make a distinction between Archana Devi and Yasmin and Sonki. They will all be the same. So it will be impossible to deal at the physical world. That's what they're saying. This is necessary for its action, since its business is to deal with the finite as finite. We have to accept for practical purposes and for the reasons dealings with the finite, the cadre it gives us, the framework. The framework is through the senses. Because it is valid as an effect of reality. It's not the reality, but it's a result of a creation of reality, effect of reality, and so cannot be disregarded. We have to see it as, we have to take it for what it is. When we come to the experience of the spiritual, which is itself the whole or contains the whole in itself, okay, he's making a small difference. Look at that very carefully. You can, every phrase of Sri Aurobindo we have to concentrate and see what he's saying. When we come to the experience of the spiritual, the level 2, which is itself the whole or contains the whole in itself. That means the itself is even larger than the whole. Just see what it means. Is itself the whole, okay? It is the whole or contains the whole. That means there is another whole bigger than the whole of the universe. Again, we come back to the idea of the levels of infinities. There is not only one infinity, there are levels and levels of infinity. We have discussed that one day, remember. Our mind carries there too its segmenting reason and the definitions necessary to a finite cognition. In other words, what he's saying here is that in the lower, in level 1, we were used to the mind making distinctions and making a difference between black and white, between good and bad, which is finite and infinite. We are making a difference. But this habit is so hard and so difficult to get rid of that when we go to level 2, the spiritual planes, this habit is still there. Habit of what? Of distinguishing. And therefore you see and make a distinction between real and unreal. Okay? But if your mind is developed enough, then you can see in a different way, but this is what happens. The capacity of the mind to divide doesn't disappear absolutely in the second level. It disappears absolutely only at the third level. So this is why you see reality and unreality in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay? So our mind carries there to its segmenting reason and the definitions necessary to a finite cognition. Finite cognition, logic, and normal mind. It cuts a line of section between the infinite and the finite. Actually, there is no difference if you remember. Remember the Blake's lines, okay, to hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. So there is no real difference. They are involved in each other. But we make a difference and we cut at our normal level of, at our normal mind, ignorant mind. Okay. It cuts a line of section between the infinite and the finite, the spirit and its phenomenon or manifestations. Okay. The world is a manifestation of the spirit. And dubs, now this is very interesting. He is using the word dub. So you know very well na, that in our Hindi cinema, okay, the actor is not really singing. He is only imitating. He is making movements, and you are dubbing the song into his lips. Okay? You are imposing it on the lips. So Srinivas's use of word is very interesting. Also, when the film is made in one language, you often dub it into another language. It's an imposition, okay, which is not the real. So the physical world is a dubbing on the reality. So that's a very interesting word he's using now. So every word he uses, it is so accurate and so wonderful. We have to really appreciate that. And dubs those as real, and these as unreal. But an original and ultimate consciousness, embracing all the terms of existence in a single integral view, would see the world in its spiritual essential reality. At the highest level, you will see the whole, single integral view. Like the astronaut who goes into space and is seeing the whole Earth. Now he is not seeing the details and separates several. One single integral view in its whole spiritual essential reality, and the phenomenon as a phenomenon or manifestation of that reality. If this greater spiritual consciousness saw in things only unreality and an entire disconnection with the truth of the spirit, it could not have, if it were itself a truth consciousness, any reason for maintaining them in continuous or recurrent existence through all time. If the Brahman is seeing the physical world as unreal, why the hell would he want to continue with it? He will reject it. Okay, that's what Swami is saying. If it so maintains them, it is because they are based on the realities of the spirit. There is a truth in the physical world, and that's why he is not rejecting it. Untruth he would reject. But necessarily when, thus integrally seen, the phenomenal reality would take on another appearance than when it is viewed by the reason and sense of the finite being. It would have another and deeper reality, another and greater significance, another and more subtle and complex process of its movements of existence. Now he has used the word canon again. And the word canon, okay, it means rules, principles, standards in any particular field of activity. That's the definition of the word canon, okay, of reality, the standards of reality and all the forms of thought created by the finite reason, okay, all the forms of thought, philosophies, created by the finite reason and sense, would appear to the greater consciousness as partial constructions with an element of truth in them. Some element of truth is there in every philosophy, but not the whole. And an element of error is there, both are there. These constructions might therefore be described as at once real and unreal. So your thoughts are real and unreal. The physical world is full of things which are half real, half unreal. But the phenomenal world itself would not become either unreal or unreal real by that fact. This unreal real we have seen many times now. The shadow is unreal real. Then the blue of the sky also is unreal real. Okay. So again the rainbow. So there are so many things. It would put on another reality of a spiritual character. The finite would reveal itself as a power. When you go to the last level of consciousness, you see it as the finite is a power, a movement, a process of the infinite. It's a capacity to make itself less. That's a power. Knowledge has a power to reduce itself. So this is what you see. The infinite has the power to make itself finite. That's why that is the power of Maya. Okay, 835, 836. So we stop here. Next we'll take up an original and ultimate consciousness. What that will be, we'll do it next time. Sunki, make a note.
Tomorrow you have to go to Jimma.
Yes.
Yeah, let me tell you
So
that.
we won't have a class tomorrow.
No, I'm not sure at all, because tomorrow we may be taken to Jipmer maybe after 9. So what I suggest to you, you log on, okay, and see if I'm there. If I'm not there, I've gone at 8 o'clock too, and I will also leave a note on the chat that I'm going to Jipmer, no class, or I will be present and we'll have the class.